Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Dennis. Welcome to Patinacode. This is So You Want to Build an AD.
I'm cold right out, I'm done. Come on.
Hello, everybody. Once again, I'm Dennis, and thank you for tuning in for this edition of So You Want to Build an AD, powered by LS Fabrication. This is episode 5, and as you can see right here behind me, we got a big hole cut out of trench coat here. And as I keep saying, this is future episode you're seeing right now in the present, so you get to look at the future in the present. Now, I appreciate you guys riding with me, and we're going to see this build completely through. This is a documentary, and you guys are enjoying it and checking it out, and I appreciate the questions and you coming over to the Instagram page and joining Patinacode on Instagram. You guys get out there, send me your rides through the direct message on Instagram, give me the details and the specs. I'll get them posted up on the page, have you featured on the page for everybody to check out. So today we're going to be jumping into getting this floor pan out of here and getting it reconstructed and put back in the right way. So let's just jump right into that video. Today we're going to be taking apart some of the components that are on here because they weren't put on right. Now, that's not to say that I'm a professional or anything, but there is a right way and a wrong way to install floor panels. One option is you could go with a completely new floor, but being that we do not need to do that, we're going to take away the stuff that was put on here, which is new floor patch panels, but they weren't patched in correctly. So it's up to us to get them straightened out and get them right. One of the first things we're going to have to do, though, is cut away all these heavy welds that are on the bracketry, and then we'll be able to remove the floor. But then before we can remove the floor, though, once we grind away enough, we're going to get the engine hoist in here, and then we're going to support the front of the cab to take the weight off of the floor. This is exactly the reason why the floor is off kilter, and the rocker, I might add, is not in the right location, which that's fine too. We're gonna have to cut it because the person that put it in here before cut it a little short, and it's not where it needs to be at the front of the truck. But we're gonna straighten that out. We're gonna get everything right, and we have to do that before we can put the lower A pillar on where the hinge goes through for your door. So we'll get all to that later on, but right now we just need to get everything ground out, get the floor out of it, get our engine hoist in here, get the cab supported, and then we're going to set a set of jack stands back here on the rear cab support. There's nothing that we need to do back here on the rear, so it's fine to sit here as long as we don't have just the overbearing weight of the truck down on it. It will be sitting with its weight here, but the engine hoist, we're going to use it to level it and take some of the weight off because we are working primarily in the front of the truck, and as long as we do not disturb anything in the back, it will stay where it needs to stay. But we do have to cut the rocker over here on the passenger side someplace and then add in a piece of steel. This will be definitely one of the last things that we do on this floor piece, but it's important for us to get all this straightened out for the simple fact of we need to get to installing our LS Fabrication firewall and our toe boards. But we can't do that with a truck that's not sitting straight. It can't be off kilter. Those panels deserve the correctness of everything being straight. So we're going to get to that right now, and I'm going to go through just grinding this stuff off, and then I'll come back and let you know what the next step is that we're going to be doing. So we got some real heavy welds down here on this, and we're going to get the grinder and we're going to knock them off. We got to be careful. We got to get over here on this rocker, and we got to be as careful as we can because we don't want to damage the rocker. If you damage the bracing, that's okay. The little tabs, you can always re-weld those tabs back to the bracing. That way you'll have something to go back against the rocker with. I'd rather destroy the tabs than destroy the rocker. If you're careful enough, you should be able to get everything off without destroying anything. But keep in mind, if you got to destroy something, destroy the tabs on the bracing because you can fabricate them and get them back. You could also fabricate the rocker, but why bother? Just take your time and get it straight. So we're going to go and get this floor bracing loose, and we're going to get it loose from up here. I don't know if there's any welds. There aren't any that I can feel, but that doesn't matter. We just need to break it loose from the inside of this rocker, and then we're going to be taking the whole floor off. So once we get the floor off, we can work with getting this detached from the floor. And the same thing goes for the one over here on the passenger side. The passenger side is the side that's giving us the most trouble. We have the issue with the rocker not being in the correct position, and we need to alleviate that. And in order to do it, we got to cut everything free and then eventually cut the rocker. So let's get to this grinding real quick and just working on this tab here, because it's only welded here and down. It's not anything welded up there in the front, thankfully. So it should come off pretty easy. You know, I like this baby sledge. It's all steel construction. It's the East Wing. Got it a long time ago. As you can tell, it's pretty beat up, but that's baby Thor. Baby Thor! Anyway, get to where you need to be. Start chiseling it out. If you don't have a chisel, you can get a pretty stout screwdriver. But as we're chiseling, we just want to try to chisel off the weld, not chiseling into the rocker, because we don't want to damage that. So far this is broke off. We need to get up there and get that ground back so we can pry that loose. All right, man, the sparks is flying, the sweat's rolling, man. It's hot as hell in here, but we got to get this done. So we got this bracing, the floor bracing cut away, and I got a little wild, and I kind of nicked the bracing, and that's fine. So when we get all this out, we're going to have our floor panel out, completely out, with this bracing attached. We're going to get it set up on the sawhorses, get it clamped down, and then we can carefully remove all these big booger welds from the bracing. Then we'll go back and grind all these little booger welds down, get them flat, so that we'll have a good mating surface when it's time to reattach our floor bracing to the floorboard of the truck. I'm gonna show you a way that I like to get removed the welds whenever, you know, something's welded on and I want it off. I like using the grinder, but I don't like using the grinder. I prefer using the cutting wheel on the end of the angle grinder. But if you're more comfortable using the grinder, use the grinding wheel. Do not do what I'm doing. I'm just showing you. I like to use the cutoff wheel because it's a lot thinner. You can get more precise with it, and you don't nick things, sort of like I just did there. So I'm gonna get into that, and we're gonna try to get this other floor bracing off at the bottom of this truck. So this is why I like using the cutoff wheel. If you see, I got it pried out. So you start the weakest link, just like with anything else. You start on the weakest link. It was well with the weakest here. So we got this cut back, and you can see we just got us a little, pretty much like a guideline. We didn't even cut into our rocker, but we cut the welds free. Then we got the chisel and got in there and pried it out. And then you can see it's kind of rolled outward. And the reason for that is so that when we come back with the cutoff wheel, we can effectively get under here and start attacking these welds that are right here on this part, and not worry about the wheel binding or being forced into the rocker and then effectively cutting it. So now that we have the pressure off with it rolled out, we can just put the cutoff wheel in there and just cut the welds. Just cut, and you'll feel it going up. Don't force it into it. Just let the cutting wheel do its own thing and take its way up the welds, and it'll cut them out for you. And then when you get to here, the wheel will start cutting on those. And they've welded this one all the way up to the top. So it's going to be a lot of, once we get this broke free to about there, it's going to be a lot of chisel action. Just basically probably tearing it off of here. But we're in an awkward position, and I don't want to take any chances. I might get the grinder out and grind a little bit of it. I can feel the welds are way up there. So if we can just get this chiseled out and loosened up, we'll be doing okay. Once I take the floor off, it's not going to help not to have this loose. So we got to get this cut loose, and I'll probably take the grinding wheel and start grinding it flat, and then maybe come back with the cutoff wheel and hit it again. But we will get this free. So we did manage to get the other floor bracing cut away from the passenger side here. Unfortunately, I punched through the rocker with the chisel. I got a little too rambunctious trying to drive that last little bit that was welded away from the rocker, and I ended up tearing the rocker by way of doing that because I couldn't quite reach with the cutoff wheel. I wouldn't have been able to get up under there with the grinder as well. So I mean, it's probably just as good that it did tear it, and it's not a big deal. Once we get everything apart and we get the floor panels up on the sawhorses and these bracings detached, we'll be able to come back down here to the rocker, cut out a nice little square, and patch whatever spot that's tore up down there. We already have to do that on the driver's side, as you can see where they got too hot with the welder and blew through the rocker. So we're going to cut that out again, cut a nice rectangular shape with the same thickness metal, weld it back in place, and it'll be like nothing ever happened. So there's going to be some patches and some mishaps, but we didn't completely damage any of the stuff that we're trying to reuse. So that's the positive side of that. It can all be fixed with a little cutting and welding, and smoothing it all back out, and it'll look like nothing ever happened. Now we got to get to the point of getting the floor panels detached from the old floor panels. As you can see, they were overlapped. So this is going to be a simple process. We just simply cut the welds off and then everything will come free. So we have to do that here on the toe boards that's up here against the firewall. We have to also do it to the kick panel, and then of course back here by the seat pedestal we need to go right across the back there and detach these two sections. So that's the good thing about these sections, that they never did join them completely together. So there's going to be two separate pieces, and that makes it a lot easier to dissect this. All right, so with our underpinnings cut loose, we can now begin cutting out the kick panels and the toe panels. We do have to be careful when we get to the part of the floor panel that comes up next to the seat pedestal. As far as the toe panels, we're going to be putting new toe panels in and new kick panels in, so we can cut outside of the welds on those because we're going to be replacing those. But we're going to want to be careful when we get around the hump here in the firewall. We want to leave as much material there as possible, but we're definitely going to have to be really careful when we start cutting away the floorboard from the seat pedestal. Luckily, it's a gap between the weld and the pedestal on the floor, so we should be able just to cut along that weld, take our time and be real smooth, and just cut the welds in half. Then once we get the floor pulled out and get the cab sat back down, we can grind those welds flush, and then we're still going to have to figure out how much of that we need to trim back to reinstall the floor. So we're keeping the floor section here, but we're not keeping the toe board going up to the firewall, because we're replacing the firewall and we're replacing the toe board with LS fabrication panels, and we're also replacing the inner kick panels. All right, so we got him out. Now we wreaked a little havoc here on the upper toe board, as you can see right there where we got into it. That's fine. We're replacing these with our LS fabricated toe boards, but we're going to save these. These were actually good boards. They just need to come out so we can put our aftermarket shit in. So this is good sheet metal for use for patching other sheet metal, and it's the same thickness, the same grade as the rocker down there. So we're going to cut out the square here, and then we're good to go. We'll mend it back together. Now, as far as the bracing, you can see how it was all boogered up. So now that it's out, we can get this on our sawhorses, lay it flat, and then grind these off and get this off without hurting the floor, because we still need this. This is our floor panel. We still need the floor pan. We just do not need the toe board. And once we get the LS Fab stuff mocked up, we'll know exactly where we need to go as far as cutting these off so that we can mend these to our new steel that we have coming in. But the biggest deal is going to be getting this off of here. It's not right the way that you would do it, and you could do it like this, but it's not the right way. What you need to do is spot weld these in. When you put it on here, they have such a gap between the bracing and the floor that it offsets the height of the cab. It's not right in its right height because they got welds in between there where it should not be any. So by the naked eye, with everything off of it, the cab looked like, okay, it's sitting straight. But when you put it on the chassis and all that stuff is straight because we're not removing any of the mounts or anything, the cab's going to have a catawampus look to it. I ain't into all that. Even in rat rod state, I ain't into all that. And you shouldn't either. Because when you have different things, depending on if you have an under the floor clutch and brake pedal system, like what we're going to be running here, these clearances are crucial in the operation of those foot pedals. It's also, you know, you could even go up a stage, like if you were putting the LS with the hydraulic clutch. You know, you could have a slave cylinder, the hydraulic clutch, and you get the slave cylinder. If it's not a remote stop, it has to be down there by the clutch. Whatever it is you're going to do, you could end up bending up your slave cylinder and then you're out of clutch. You know, you're not going to be able to go nowhere. So important things, even in rat rod building, are to make sure everything is straight and level. That's the whole point of building. And this is just, this was just unacceptable. But we're going to fix it up. You can see what we cut away with our grinder. And it looks good. We still have, oh my God, look at this. Look at this shit. There's a bolt right there. They shoved a bolt between these to spread them out, I guess, and make this meet here where they welded this to mate there. So they were just doing what they could. And, you know, hey, you know, they didn't know any better. You know what I mean? I'm not going to sit here and dog the people. As I said, I don't know them. I've never seen them ever again in my life since the 5 years I've had this truck. But I'm not going to talk bad about somebody for simply not knowing. But I will say that if you don't know, then maybe you ought to find out and maybe ask for help, because they were wanting to sell this thing. They had hopes of putting it together and being completed, and they were going to sell this to somebody and probably ask a good deal of money for it, being that it's a 5-window and it's got new floors, new rockers, yada, yada, yada. But it would have been a piece of shit. And the person that bought it would have been pissed unless they climbed up under it before they bought it. Now, I didn't climb up under it when I bought it. I just looked at everything on the top, the appearances on the top and stuff. It was tucked into this barn, a literal barn. And it had the dirt floor and all that. And I was like, yeah, well, it looks good enough. I already knew I was going to be taking it apart and fixing on it. So, but for somebody that was unsuspecting and thought that they were going to have a good vehicle, they'd be pissed right now. Or once they found out what kind of shit they did. So, anyways, let's get to cutting out the driver's side. There's one thing that we have to do over here on the driver's side. There's a brace that runs up the toe board, and that brace is where the inner fender is located to. So if you're cutting this out, you do not want to cut this bracing, because you need that to properly align your inner fender on the driver's side. So we're going to get the cab flipped back down. There happens to be the bolts in this one, so we need to remove the bolts. I thought about just cutting the heads off and doing all that, but that's just wasting cutting wheel when I could just grab the 2 wrenches and pop it loose and then go on about my cutting. We have it loosened up pretty good here. So after I get these 3 bolts out, there's one more spot that I need to cut. We'll whack that, and then the kick panel, the toe board, and this floor panel will come up out of this truck. So I'm gonna get this thing flipped back over right side up so that we can get this bracing loose. This is a straight up balancing act, let me tell you. And it's something that you really should not be doing by yourself. Even though I've done this a few times, it's still not the smartest thing to do. Just have to be careful, that's all it is. Man. Look at that, man. Another one of them bolts. Welded in to serve, I don't know. We got a little bit of damage up there on the top of the rocker. That's fine. The inside part is still good and intact from where the framing was for the brace, actually, the floor brace. Let's look at this thing. All right, so yeah, we kind of got the little tab messed up, but we can fix that. That's nothing. The cool thing is we got it out, and now we're gonna start work on grinding all this stuff off of here. So in conclusion, we need to do a baby assessment, and I can't fully assess it until we get this door off. But right now, as you see, we did a little bit of damage to the top of the rocker, which that's no big deal. This is new metal, so it'll be easy to cut it out back here and then just weld a new piece that goes out as the 90 for our mating surface to the floor. But as you can see, if you look in there, the lower A pillar is just not meeting up with the rocker panel at all. The top of this A pillar should be right there. That means this rocker should be over here. And if you look down the side of that, you can see that it's not straight. Well, it's gonna be work. That's what it is, it's work. And this is the old archway, the original one. And you see they've got it welded on here. And like I said, you see it was easy to figure this side out because of the location holes that you need for the e-brake bar that would come through here. And so we just need to sand off the welds just like we've done before, get it grounded out to where we can pull this away from the rocker. Now looking back over here at the passenger side, you can see that the rocker is going upward and is nowhere near level position. So, you know, that tells you right there, we got work to do. And they didn't really do, you know, they kind of left us, they left us short, man, real short. So I got a fix for that. I think I know what I'm gonna do in order to make our floor panels meet back there by the seat tub. We got a little bit of metal. We got a little bit of metal to clean up there. Not a big deal. None of this is a big deal. I'm gonna take you through it step by step. Hopefully you get an example of a truck that's not as bad off as this one. As I said, this is an original archway, and I mean, so the good thing is we have the outer cowl panels. We can replace this because this really comes all the way out to here. We're gonna have to do a little bit of fabrication here. The cool thing is, since we're putting a fabricated piece right here, we're gonna be cutting this out, and then after we get our new piece in to mask where we were working, we're gonna be putting a smear coat. So to get this chiseled out, it's fine. It's ruined behind here. I can feel that this piece was set over top because there's a hole back here. So we're just simply gonna chisel this flap out, grind this off, get it out, and then we're gonna cut and just replace it with a new piece of sheet metal. And as I said, once we skim coat to fill in from our working, you know, it'll cover that as well, and it look like nothing ever happened when we get to that point. So the same thing goes for over here on that side. You can see there's damage. Those two holes down there is where the water would come in for your heater core, and then the two holes that you got there, these two were for the other heater core, the one that we pulled out of the truck already. So it's not a big deal. This whole piece is going to be cut out and replaced. So we're not worried about the holes that are in this panel section. It's just we need to fix the outer parts of this because we're not cutting way out here. We're only cutting inside here. So we got a little bit of work to do, but that's the whole thing. That's the whole point. And we got all of our junk out of the way. I can't call it junk because we are going to reuse the floor pans, even though they're kind of bent, but we can straighten them. It's easy to straighten that stuff out. And then there's the other set here for our driver's side. So that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode of So You Want to Build an AD, and you look forward to coming back again and checking out what we discover next. Maybe you learned something today. I know I did. But it wasn't some shit that I wanted to learn, I can tell you that much. But that's all part of it. That's what So You Want to Build an AD is about. We're going to find out what is exactly wrong with this truck together. And what's coming up next as far as the next episode, I can't tell you that. Not because I'm like, hey, you got to tune in to watch. It's because I can't tell you that. Whatever I do next is whatever it is that I'm going to be filming and taking you through the step-by-step process of what I'm doing. So I don't even know what we're gonna do. I gotta look at this thing and then I'll formulate a plan from there. But today was a good day. We got the floor pans out. We've made some progress, and that's all that really matters. I want to encourage you guys to check me out on Instagram. You can find me at Patinacode on Instagram. And if you want, like I said before, drop me a message. Send me pictures of your project or your finished build. Give me some specs, engine, transmission, and whatever else you would like to share about that vehicle. And I'll get it posted up on the Patinacode Instagram page. I'm going to start getting this cleaned up so we can get prepared for the next episode of So You Want to Build an AD. Thanks for watching. Stay with me. We're going to get it loose from up here. I don't know if they're...
Step aside and get right behind.